All right, ladies and gentlemen, Steve Malzberg here, welcoming you on this, well, I guess 4th of July Eve. And I have to tell you, I am so honored to have our next guest, but I think it's especially appropriate because it is almost the 4th of July, and also because of what's going on in the world with the North Korean threat. It's very rare that we hear from a veteran of the Korean War so eloquently weighing in on not only what he experienced, but what he believes needs to be done to quell the current circumstances. So we welcome in Leonard Adrian. He's, as mentioned, Korean War veteran and author of Hilltop Doc, a Marine Corpsman fighting through the mud and blood of the Korean War. And there's the book on your screen, and there's Leonard. Hello, Leonard.
Hello, Steve.
Well, happy 4th of July, sir.
Thank you.
What made you, after I guess you were silent for some, 60 years or so, what made you put down in words, before we get to the op-ed about the situation today, what made you write the book, Hilltop Doc?
I was active at Washington University in St. Louis. I'm a facilitator of some writing classes. And a friend of mine knew that I had been in Korea, and he was doing a class on the Korean War, asked me if I would appear before his class to answer a few questions for 15, 20 minutes. And I told him, because he was a friend, sure, I'd give it a try. And I went to his class and found that the class had incredible numbers of interest in the war and the details and what I wore and what kind of weapon I carried. And instead of 15 or 20 minutes, it went into an hour, then another hour, then in several hours. And after that, somebody at the faculty at Washington U said, you ought to write some of this down. So I began to write it down. And of course, I teach a memoir class. So I shared it with the class, and the class said, you got to put together a book.
And the rest is history, as they say. Well, congratulations on it. It's a great read. And, you know, what amazes me, not only about the caliber of person you and those who fought alongside you and before you in other wars and since you and future wars from yours are, but you were saving lives, acting as a doctor. But you had no medical training, no formal medical training. You weren't a doctor, yet you were thrown into that role, correct?
I was a corpsman, so I did get, at the end of World War II, in my first tour of duty, some training as a corpsman in a place called Farragut, Idaho. But it was like 6 or 8 weeks of training. And then, of course, the war ended. I got out. I went to college, and then I got called back into service because I was in the reserve. So I had very minimum amount of medical training, first aid kind of training. And I got a lot more training when I was in Korea from the doctors and the other corpsmen who I served with.
And this was a battle, these are battles that you talk about in the book of the U.S. Marines against the Chinese Army, looking to win some key pieces of land, I guess get the high ground in many instances. And boy, you describe and you show, and there were photos of some really heart-wrenching, tough scenes to look at and read about, and you lived through it.
Yes, I did. And that's probably why I could talk about it for such a long time.
Well, talk about some of it now, and you also, of course, the thousands and thousands of men who fought alongside you and served and lost their lives. An ongoing battle that we still have a situation today where, once again, Korea is becoming, and has been right along, but is now becoming an increased threat. And President Trump has indicated that, the time for containment may be over. I know you wrote an op-ed, a very eloquent op-ed, weighing in on your views on what needs to be done here in this situation. Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
Okay. First of all, my premise is that we have saved South Korea from the North long ago, and we have done enough to save South Korea. We lost 36,000 men dead. We lost 103,000 wounded. There's about 8,000 that are still listed as missing in action. in about a 37-month war. That is a very intense war, and it was intense. And I think we paid enough. And it seems to me that if South Korea, with 50 million people, against North Korea with about 25 million people, prepares and mobilizes its forces, they can become and should become able to defend themselves without the United States doing it all over again at great loss to us. So it's concerning to me that that this situation exists. We have about 28,000 men in service in South Korea right now, and they are there as a deterrent. And that bothers me too, because to me, the deterrent is that Kim Jong-un is afraid to attack the South for fear he'll kill some of these Americans and cause a massive expansion by what the United States would do in retaliation. But what that says is that if he's irrational, and he somewhat seems to be, if he attacks and we lose those 28,000 or some of the 28,000, we've sacrificed them. And they shouldn't be there as a sacrifice, because if we work with South Korea and we give them armaments and planes and missiles and all the other things they need, and we send in some people to train their warriors, it seems to me South Korea should take the responsibility to defend themselves without the United States going through another Korean War.
So you would like to see those 20,000, some odd 20,000 troops come home?
Absolutely. And I think that until they do, the South Koreans will not be convinced that they have to prepare and mobilize for war against the North.
And Leonard, one more point. You also mentioned China in that op-ed, and Donald Trump has certainly publicly reached out to China and asked for their help with North Korea. What role do they have to play, and what role do you think they can play with this particular North Korean leader?
Well, of course, we know that China has influence with the leader because the amount of trade and interplay between China and North Korea. But I think it has to go beyond that. I think China could and should guarantee the North Koreans that they will step in and defend them against an attack from the South. Because the leader of North Korea has said that the reason he is developing nuclear capability is because he's fearful for his country being attacked and wiped out by others. And if we remove that fear, if it's real, and the Chinese tell the North Koreans that we will not let you be defeated by attack from the United States or the United Nations or from the South, then you're safe, provided you abandon your nuclear ambitions. Because, you know, the reality is, and I think this is a given, if this leader of North Korea, Kim, brings his country to the point where they have an intercontinental missile with a nuclear warhead capable of reaching Hawaii and the Philippines and the United States West Coast, the world is not going to sit by and let him have that because he's too unpredictable. They're going to attack. And if the world attacks him, he's going to be wiped out anyway. So, but not without great loss, because he will retaliate. And we've got Seoul sitting there, a major city with a population of about 27 million. And they're right on the doorstep of North Korea. He's got artillery already aimed at that, at Seoul. And we've got to do something to stop this from happening, because if it happens, it's going to be horrible.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Yeah.
No. Well. Listen. I think maybe Donald Trump should read your op-ed and have a private audience with you, because I think you're spelling it out in pretty simple terms, a very complicated situation. I urge everyone to celebrate the 4th of July by going online now or going to your favorite bookstore if you still do that, and buy Leonard Adrian's book, Hilltop Doc. And Leonard, I wish you a happy 4th of July, and thank you for sharing, and many, many more, sir.
Thank you, Steve. Nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, have a great holiday. And until next time, please stay tuned and check in with NewsmaxTV.com and, of course, the website newsmax.com.